This is the face of the killer who stabbed a man to death after a New Year's Eve party. Hassan Suliman, who's 31 years old, fatally knifed 38-year-old Alberto Ursu on the streets of Rochdale. He was accused of murder but was acquitted and instead found guilty of manslaughter following a trial at Manchester Crown Court. He faces a lengthy prison sentence when he learns his fate in November. His ex-partner, Karla Pokutova, who's 31, was warned she could also face a prison sentence after being found guilty of perverting the course of justice. She hid knives and lied to police about what had happened. Following Mr Ursu's death, his friend paid tribute and said he was a happy, loving man and had a good heart. He was kind, caring and very passionate about his children and wife. He was the life and soul at parties and was a real good man. He was also described by somebody else as an amazing person. So the trial heard that the killing followed after a boozy family party in Rochdale to bring in the new year. Mr Suliman and Mr Ursu were at a gathering at Pokutova's home in Rochdale with a number of family members. Mr Ursu was in a relationship with Pokutova's sister. Mr Suliman was pissed out of his head and he was out of control that evening, and before the killing had already attacked strangers in the street, the court was told. The prosecutor, Benjamin Aina KC, said at the trial the night was uneventful to begin with. People were drinking and enjoying the festivities. It changed about half an hour after midnight. Suliman left the party drunk as a skunk when he's not supposed to be drinking, and he walked outside and attacked a random member of the public, a man who had just been walking past the house on Essex Street. People inside, including Mr Ursu, went outside to try and calm things down. However, Suliman became involved in a struggle with family members, including Pokutova's mother, who was known locally as Grandma. Suliman then told Mr Ursu, "Fucking stop, don't touch me. You want to fucking bang? Come on then. If you're a big man, let's bang." And they became involved in a fight, and Grandma was shoved in the chest by Suliman during the melee. Grandma then got back up and slapped Suliman in the face and told him to stop. However, he turned around and he fucking blasted her one in the stomach, causing her to fall. Mr Ursu then hit Suliman and told him, "You bastard, why did you fucking hit Grandma?" Suliman pleaded guilty to a fray after hitting strangers in the street. And then the police were then called and attended the property, and officers ordered everyone who did not live there to leave, and Mr Ursu returned to his home with members of his family, and that should have been the end of it, said the prosecutor. However, around 2 hours later, Suliman and Ms Pokutova arrived at Mr Ursu's address saying they were looking for his phone. Suliman was causing havoc and accusing members of the family of taking it, it was claimed, and he and Mr Ursu were arguing. Suliman left and returned to the other street where the party was going on, and he was followed by Mr Ursu. And then Suliman said, "Come on, you little mother." Pokutova, who was also present, was begging him to stop. The pair became embroiled in a fight, and Mr Suliman was saying, "Come on, you fucking big man, you think you're bad, I'm going to smack you up." And then they ended up on the floor, and that's when Suliman stabbed Mr Ursu in the chest and through the heart, which would prove fatal. So Mr Ursu was able to walk a short distance along Essex Street before collapsing, and he was rushed to hospital but he was pronounced dead just after 4 o'clock in the morning. Mr Suliman, who was found nearby on Milkstone Road, he had actually suffered stab wounds to his back, and which had perforated his liver, so it seems though that they both ended up having a fucking knife fight. He was arrested on suspicion of murder as he recovered in hospital, and he said, "Alberto is die. You mean murder is he die?" He then muttered under his breath, "I didn't do anything, I'm just only defense myself." After Mr Ursu had been stabbed, Pokutova hid 3 knives behind a radiator in the house where the initial party was going on, Grandma's house, and when police attended, they spoke with Pokutova, who said she was single and that her partner lived in Leeds, and she said a man named Hamza had been fighting with Mr Ursu. After being arrested days later, Pokutova denied being in possession of knives, and she was charged with perverting the course of justice. The prosecutor said she took the knives, hid them behind the radiator, knowing full well what had happened what those knives had been used for. When the police came, she misled them. She didn't tell them about the location of the knives. She denied knowledge of the incident, no doubt attempted to protect the father of her children. So at trial, Suliman claimed he was acting in self-defense. He said, all I wanted for him was to go away back into his house. I was defending myself because he was holding the knife. You can see by the stab wounds in my back that he stabbed me up. That's why I retaliated. So Suliman of Rochdale was found not guilty of murder, but guilty of manslaughter. He was found not guilty of 2 counts of having an article with a blade or point, not guilty of having an offensive weapon, and not guilty of threatening another with an offensive weapon in a private place. He had previously admitted a free. Pokutova was found guilty of 2 counts of perverting the course of justice. Pokutova was warned that she could face a prison sentence when she and her ex are sentenced in November. After the hearing, Detective Inspector Paul Davies of Greater Manchester Police's senior investigating officer for the case said this was a tragic and senseless loss of life during what was supposed to be a New Year celebration. Our investigation covered a chaotic and violent scene, but through forensic evidence, CCTV and witness accounts, we were able to piece together the events and bring those responsible to justice. He also said this case outlines the devastation of knife crime. One man has lost his life and another now faces a lengthy sentence. We hope this outcome brings some measure of closure to Alberto's family. So the court had also heard that Hassan Suliman stabbed a man in the roof of his mouth with a screwdriver, and for that incident he was actually spared jail. So this happened following an argument outside Yates's Wine Lodge in the town centre in October 2018. During this time, I think Hassan Suliman was about 25, 26, and during the melee, he actually used a screwdriver to stab his victim in the forehead, jaw, and the roof of his mouth. It left the victim needing hospital treatment after Suliman caused a 2-centimetre puncture wound in his mouth and a 3-centimetre wound on his chin. So Suliman, who at the time was an asylum seeker from Sudan, was only handed a 21-month prison sentence, suspended for 2 years. During that sentencing hearing, it was said that Suliman of Rochdale had first approached his victims in the early hours of Sunday, October the 21st, 2018, and the victim was with some friends and they were chatting outside Yates's, and the pub had closed by this point. Among the group was a woman and her partner, and then the prosecutor said Suliman took a cigarette out of the woman's mouth and asked her if she wanted driving home. Upset, the woman left, which is then when Suliman began becoming aggressive. He asked one member of the group why he was staring at him, at which point a group of other men offered to drive the victim and his friends home. The group walked to the nearby job centre car park where their vehicle was parked but could not leave. When they got to the car, the defendant was parked up at the gate of the car park, and the defendant beckoned and opened the boot of his car, and he was met by the defendant holding a screwdriver in his hand, and he brandished it and said, "If you want to die, I will kill you." And that's when he ended up stabbing him. So as I said, he wasn't jailed for that offence, but during the actual sentencing, it was said that Suliman was an asylum seeker from Sudan who had fled violence in the area, and the judge said it's remarkable that having fled violence in Sudan, you caused to bring violence to the streets of Rochdale. So guys, this was a few years ago, and look what's happened now. He's got done for killing someone. Absolute madness, guys.